Good morning and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me live at MarketSite is Bartt Kellerman. He is the founder of Battle of the Quants. I love that name.
Thank you.
Pretty sexy name. Tell us about the Battle of the Quants in the history.
It was about 13 years ago, and I noticed that in the industry there were no events just for quants. I mean, the quants would come into these big hedge fund events, and they would say they'd put the quants in the corner. I said, enough of that. Let's put them on the pedestal. So let's have an event just for quants. And it really took off. We invited quant managers, quant investors, and a few sponsors, and we had some unbelievable discussions. And the reason for the name was, back in those days, the traditional fund managers were challenged by the quants. They didn't know who they were outsiders, and so there was sort of a battle going on to get the mind of the investor to allocate their capital to quant strategies. And there was just this constant battle, and so we used the word battle. It was the battle of the quants, and there's always been a battle in some way over the years, over the last 13 years, that I have found, because sort of the man and machine has kind of gone away. I mean, people kind of accept where both aspects are. So the battle continues.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the milestones you've seen over the past 13 years in the quant world.
Well, it was very interesting. When I first started this, it was basically long, short equity. Most of the quants were in the banks and market neutral strategies. But then 2007, August 2007 came along. We had the quant meltdown, and there was a flight to safety because of what was happening in the marketplace, and none of the models started working. And then there was a huge allocation. So that sort of had people looking more about just the equity part of quants and looking at alternatives. And that's when CTAs started to become very famous, because they obviously did very well during the 2008 crisis. And then following the whole CTA focus, then we moved on to high-frequency trading. Computers started trading much more rapidly. The technology was being exploited. And HFT came into being. Of course, we all know what happened with that. HFT funds, although it's still practiced, it has kind of gone underground. It's become very, very competitive. So that's sort of a quick overview of the marketplace over the last 13 years.
All right, so then where are the quants now?
Well, we're now in a bull market of data. It's all about the data. As a matter of fact, a little anecdote. I was chatting with a manager the other day, and I said, so what's more important to you? The investors, which we always have plenty of at the Battle of the Quants, or is it data, which we have now really focused on? And their answer was data. Data, 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 because they feel if we have great data, alpha-generating data, we'll be able to produce the numbers that will garner the interest of the investors and will be a successful operation. So it's amazing what's going on in data in terms of the amount of sources that are becoming available, and then once you get these new sources, what do you do with it? And that's when you overlay this new phenomenon, as we all keep hearing about, is artificial intelligence and the derivatives of that, machine learning, deep learning, and reinforced deep learning. So
let's talk about that, the impact of AI and machine learning on the quant world.
Well, what we're seeing is, like most industries, there's an incredible investment taking place in machine learning, especially in the trading world, primarily because now that, as I said, data is becoming a priority, they are receiving reams and reams and vast amounts of not only structured, but more importantly, unstructured data. So from sources that you would never previously, trade on. Satellite imagery is one. Different data sources with regards to text, natural language program, NLP, and looking at words and taking sentiment from those words. So incredible sources, and because the volume is so large, it would be impossible, even if you had everybody in India doing research on the data that was coming, you would never be able to sift through it within a reasonable amount of time. Machine learning takes care of that. So you have an incredible investment, an incredible number of strategies that are relying on finding data that makes sense, and then overlaying that with machine learning in order to see patterns and make predictions on future market moves.
All right, so the obvious question is, what's the future for the quant world?
Well, we've focused recently, we actually had an event, Battle of the Cryptos, believe it or not, a little bit of a departure, what we call a hard fork into another area, but still a battle, and that is the area of blockchain and Bitcoin. And what we're finding is there's some really, really innovative people within that arena taking advantage of what blockchain offers in terms of a decentralized system, and also on the cryptocurrency part, being able to reward people for developing quant algos in order to feed into a larger system. So there's a really interesting set of ideas that we're seeing that are platforms that enable large number of unbanked as well as people who don't want to transfer money around to be able to produce value, feed that up to a platform, and then be compensated with a specific type of coin, which they can turn into Ether or Bitcoin, and then into cash within their own jurisdiction.
And
so
the other one
very
is
interesting.
Multi-dimensional data sets.
Well, so in the past, we've really we've focused on two-dimensional data sets. That is, Visa card purchases, what date, how much, how frequently. Now what we're seeing is the integration of multi-dimensions with each data set. So in other words, let's say Chevron sells a gallon of gas. How does that relate to what the Saudis are doing in terms of selling Aramco, or more electric cars coming on? It's combining all of those different data sets in order to predict other components of the market. So we're seeing more work being done and leveraging artificial intelligence to start looking at other dimensions of data, not just two-dimensional. So many different strides are being made within that arena and leveraging the technology to look at different components of a piece of data.
All right, and to wrap it up, tell us about Battle of the Quants in New York City. That's coming up soon.
June 20th at Carnegie Hall.
Amazing.
We've actually had to expand to an entirely new floor because of all the data providers that are coming in, an unprecedented demand from the data providers. We also have institutional investors and some of the biggest tens of billions of dollars of assets being run by systematic strategies. But we're going to put them all together. We've got an incredible program. World Quant, Igor Tolchinsky, CEO, is going to be speaking. A whole host of Millennium people are going to be there. And I mean, I could go on and on, but it's going to be probably the best Battle of the Quants yet, incorporating investors, cryptocurrency, blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and an unprecedented number of data providers.
Well, I look forward to covering that. It sounds exciting.
Great. I look forward to seeing you there.
Well, thank you for joining us at MarketSite.
Great.
Thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.